What's up, everyone? Happy Friday. It is so wonderful to see all of you here. My name is Sophie Barron, founder and CEO of The Conversationalist, and we are here for our 10th and final list panel. Can't believe our 10 events have already gone by, as we've been able to honor incredible Gen Zers as well as celebrities in each of our 10 categories. Thank you all for spending your Friday evening with us and being a part of our mission to unify the world. Clearly, tonight's topic of unification is incredibly special and near and dear to my heart and to all of our hearts here at TC, which is why I had to wear the TC yellow tonight, repping unification. Thanks, Haley. I appreciate the love. And without further ado, wanted to just share a little bit about TC before we dive in. We are the go-to destination for Gen Z. We are a global community of change makers on a mission to break open echo chambers, have important conversations, and unify the world. And tonight, we have an incredible lineup of speakers for you, especially our distinguished celebrity honoree. So, if you enjoy this conversation and you're looking to connect with other young changemakers, maybe get started in using your voice for good and talk about the topics that matter most to you, join us in our community. All you have to do is head to The Conversationalist on Instagram, tap our link in bio, and you will be right there. It's so easy, but if you just want to text a number right now, get in right this moment. Text the word unify to 877-222-1119. Taylor, our community manager, will be there to greet you, get you in, and we'll start having conversations that matter. So thank you all again for being here. So many familiar faces in the chat already. Cece, Chloe, Ethan, Dasanka, Haley, Esther, welcome. We're so happy to have you with us and joining the conversation. So without further ado, I have the distinguished honor to introduce our celebrity honoree this evening. This unification category, as you know, is extremely special. So we are excited to introduce tonight's celebrity honoree, who is an actress and dancer, best known for her starring role on Netflix's Never Have I Ever. She's also a fierce advocate for unification in her roles on screen as Kamala and off screen as well. Her work often revolves around giving a voice to the South Asian diaspora and shedding a light on the experiences of marginalized and often overlooked communities. Through her roles and advocacy, Richa continuously inspires young people around the world to hear and see all kinds of perspectives and to unify the world just the same. I am so beyond excited to introduce our distinguished celebrity honoree for unification, Richa Moorjani. Hi, Richa.
Hi, thank you for that lovely introduction.
Oh my gosh. Well, I could have gone on and on. Even though this is our first time meeting, our team is just so impressed by you and your work and your ability to create change through all of the work that you do on and off screen. So thank you.
Thank you. And ditto, I'm so impressed by the work that you do. And I think it's such a great platform.
Thank you so much. I'm excited to get to know you better. And I'd love to ask you a question to kick us off. So sure. Clearly, in the intro, we all heard that you truly make the world a better place through your roles on and off screen. And we've also seen you do this through your advocacy work and your overall positive influence. I even noticed that your Twitter bio includes the quote, "The role of the artist is to make the revolution irresistible," which I love. What inspired you to begin using your platform for good in the first place?
Thank you for saying all of that. And also, first of all, I just want to congratulate everyone who's in this panel today, everyone who you guys who are watching are going to get to see. Such an amazing lineup of inspiring young leaders who are really making this world a better place. So just wanted to say that. I don't know what inspired me. I guess, seeing other people using their platform for a similar purpose to speak out about things that matter to them gave me the confidence and the inspiration. But really, I really do believe in this saying that with any kind of power comes responsibility. And for me, especially my platform really started to grow after Never Have I Ever got released. And when I saw that people were following me and really looking to me, I realized I didn't just have the responsibility, but I had the opportunity to speak out about things that I really care about and that I'm passionate about, and to be able to reach a large audience with my message. So I guess it's a combination of seeing other people using their platforms and just realizing that I had the opportunity to do the same thing.
It's amazing. And out of curiosity, what are some of those topics that matter most to you?
so many topics. And one thing I will say is, I think it's important to use your platform and use your voice to talk about the things that matter to you. And I don't think you should feel pressured to talk about every single issue, because that can also not be as effective. So for me, there are a lot of things that I care about, but I do try to focus on a few things that I feel like I can effectively use my voice for. So some of those things are environmental justice, climate change. I talk a lot about plant-based living, because I think that's a really important step to environmental justice and animal rights. So those are some things, social justice, and I think there's more things, but those are the ones that I really try to focus on.
Amazing, and really appreciate what you shared. Intersectionality is so important, but we don't have to advocate for every single cause under the sun. It's better to make a very focused impact. So
yeah, and that being said, I think everyone, sorry, I think I cut you off.
No,
but
go for it.
I think everyone has something to share and something to give. And so when we all use our voice, even if we're, speaking out about different topics, or even if it's the same topic, but from different angles, that's how we can effectively fight for change.
I completely agree. So now that we're learning more about you, I also have just so beautifully noticed in all of the work that you do, your ability to really give voice to marginalized communities. And your work really is unifying the world, which is what we champion here at The Conversationalist. So I would love to know what unity means to you. And also, why do you think it's important that we come together, not only to unite as a country, but also as a human race?
Yeah. I mean, I think unity means so many things, and it's important for so many different reasons. I personally believe that if we have any hopes of surviving as a human race and our planet surviving, we have to come together. We have to come together and celebrate our differences and celebrate our diversity with a common goal of a world of peace, a world of justice, a healthy planet. And I think that the only way to do that is by standing together. And we are stronger together, and we are weaker when we're divided. And we've seen that time and time again. And I think, division leads to hate, it leads to bigotry, it leads to violence, it leads to death sometimes. So that's why it's so important for us to be united. And that doesn't mean that we have to agree about everything. It doesn't mean we have to think the same way, but our diversity is what makes the human race so beautiful. So I think it's so important for us to come together and celebrate that.
I think the word celebrate is so perfect, because like you said, Richa, it's not about, forsaking anyone else's belief systems or, trying to group us individually with different distinct identity groups, but rather standing together with a common purpose of wanting to build a better future. So thank you for sharing that. And I think celebrating our diversity is such an important message.
Absolutely.
So with that in mind, Richa, you've also been such a role model to so many young people who are eager to advocate for this future that we were just talking about. Not to mention your character's name on Never Have I Ever is Kamala, like our newest vice president of the US, which I'm sure is no coincidence. What advice do you have for Gen Z wanting to start using their voices for good?
Oh, wow. What advice do I have? I guess, well, first of all, I think if you want to use your voice, that's amazing, and you absolutely should, because I really believe that every voice matters. And I believe that individual change can lead to systemic change. So even if you feel like, I only have one follower or I have 100 followers, it doesn't matter how big your platform is, or if you're even on social media at all. There's so many different ways to use your voice, whether that be through social media or through activism or through The Conversationalist, or through creating your organization, like so many of these Gen Z leaders have. I think there's so many different ways you can. One thing I will say is, when you do use your voice, you have to go in knowing that you are going to face adversity. You are going to come across people who disagree with you and who may even try to silence you or tear you down. And you can't let those people get to you, because if there's something that you truly care about and something you really want to fight for, you have to fight for it every single day and not let those people get to you. And that being said, I think a very important part of all of this is self-care. I think it's so important to fight for what you believe in, but to really take care of yourself at the same time and find times to nourish yourself, because I think that our words and our actions are so much more effective when they come from a place of us being grounded and healthy.
Completely agree. Those were such actionable tips, prioritizing our self-care, utilizing our platforms, and realizing our influence to use our voices for good and trying to quiet out some of the noise, because no matter what, people are going to try to weigh you down, but it's all about what's in here and, knowing that you're trying to make a difference. So thank you so much for that advice.
And one other thing is that I really believe that when you use your voice, you're going to inspire maybe one other person or 100 other people to use their voice. I've personally, some of the most touching messages I receive are hearing things like, you gave me the confidence to talk about things that no other people really talk about, and now I feel confident talking about it. So that really means a lot to me, and I think that can happen for everyone.
I love that. My favorite quote over the past couple of weeks has become, great leaders don't create followers, they create more leaders and better leaders. And I think that's so true in what you just shared about voice. You never know who's watching, you never know who's listening, and we can have such a profound impact on the people around us. So thank you. I have one more question while you're here with us tonight. I have to take a step back. Richa, you truly embody what it means to be a unifier. That is what our platform is all about, bringing people together, bridging those divides, and being able to celebrate our common humanity while doing so. And so I would love to know, throughout, your entire journey as a unifier, I would love to know, where do you think we go from here? What are some actionable steps that we can take, and how can we start building this unified world that we're envisioning?
Oh yeah, that's a really profound question. I think that there are several ways for us to go about becoming more unified. I think the first and foremost, most important thing is starting with ourselves, really taking the time to look within and introspect and think about what our own biases and prejudices and beliefs that may be holding us back or limiting our worldviews are, and taking the time to educate ourselves and to try and have conversations with people who maybe don't come from the same background or experience as us. And going along with that, I think really cultivating a deep sense of empathy for ourselves and for other people. And I think that empathy is such an important thing that we need to have to be able to be united. And I think by putting yourself in other people's shoes is a great way to start cultivating empathy. And having conversations like this, having conversations that make you uncomfortable and maybe with people who don't agree with you, opening your mind and your heart. I think we need to cancel culture. We need to start listening to people. We need to give people a chance, and, don't disregard somebody just because they may not hold the same beliefs as you, because I think you can't kill hate with more hate.
There's that quote, right? That in order to drive out hate, you've got to drive it out with love and light.
Exactly.
So, what a profound statement. Also, Richa, I don't know if you said this on purpose or not, but we even sell merch that says cancel culture. So we'll have to send you a sweatshirt in the mail.
Oh my God, I want that sweatshirt.
Amazing. We will make sure you get it. But thank you for just really embodying our mission and being an inspiration to our entire generation. We're so grateful to honor you.
Thank you. I'm so honored to be on this panel, honestly, and I'm so excited to hear the other speakers today.
Me too. So let us know how we can continue to amplify your important work. We'll be following your journey, and thank you so much for spending your Friday night with us.
Thanks, Sophie.
Awesome. Bye, Richa.
Bye.
Wow. I hope every single conversationalist who is in the live chat watching right now is snapping on the couch, in your bed, on a walk, because of that incredible, incredible moment that Richa just shared with us. Wow. What an incredible start to tonight's event. Thank you all so much for being here tonight, and congratulations again to Richa Moorjani for receiving our Unification Award. So without further ado, we are going to move on to the next portion of our evening together, and we are going to introduce all of our Gen Z honorees this evening. Our mission is all about amplifying Gen Z voices, and we could not be more excited to honor distinguished young changemakers who are truly using their voices for good. And tonight, a few of the honorees could not be with us, so I want to make sure that we can still acknowledge them for their incredible work. So I'm going to read their introductions, and then we'll bring our honorees on stage for a conversation. So first up, we have Julia Turpak, who is the founder of Gen Z Connect. Gen Z Connect is an organization aimed at starting important, relevant discussions in hopes of motivating Gen Z to better themselves and our future. She works to create content to connect Gen Z on the issues facing our generation. Clearly, Julia's work is very in line with TC, so we're sad she couldn't be here with us tonight, but we're excited to continue supporting her work. Next up, we have Another Julia. We love Julias here at TC, and we're honored to really honor Julia Haber, who is the founder of Home from College. She began her work because of her love for content creation, curiosity, and humanity. Julia is a builder of startups, a lover of marketing, and she is passionate about human connection, which really shows through her work of building a home for all college students. Again, we wish Julia could be with us tonight, but we're excited to follow her work. Check out Home from College on Instagram so you can see her journey. Our next honorees are the co-presidents and the vice president of Vote Z. Before Vote Z, Ben volunteered with Pittsburgh Cares, March for Our Lives, Pittsburgh, and worked on local political campaigns in his hometown and in New York City. Jordan is the co-founder and president of Vote Z. She is currently a student, at Catholic University in Washington, D.C., majoring in politics and sociology. Jordan and Ben are working to change the culture around voting amongst Gen Z and helping our generations use their voices through civic action. Again, we wish that Ben and Jordan could be with us, but check out their amazing work on Instagram at WeVoteZ. Awesome. So next up, our honoree who could not be with us this evening is Sam Gibbs. Sam is the co-founder and arts and culture editor of Gen Zine. She describes Gen Z as powerful in all caps. She helps to curate stories about art and culture that are relevant to Gen Z and educate Gen Z on the issues that impact it. The goal of Gen Zine is to stimulate conversations that are typically ignored and to educate her peers in order to have a better educated and more inclusive world. We love Gen Zine at the Conversationalist, so even though Sam couldn't be with us tonight, we have another member from her team here who you will meet in just a bit. So those are our honorees who could not be with us this evening, but we are going to move on to the honorees who are here backstage, these incredible young changemakers who we are so grateful are now a part of our community. So I'm going to bring them up to the stage one by one, get to ask them an important question, and we would love to hear your thoughts in the live chat. So keep the conversation going with us. We so appreciate everyone who is here. We still see Andrea, Sanjana, Alexandra, Taylor, Basha. It's so wonderful seeing you all here. Thank you again for spending your Friday evening with us as we kick off our final list panel. So here we go. Let's bring up our first honoree for the evening. Our first Unification honoree tonight is the founder and CEO of BEAM, an international organization of 1,000+ high school seniors supporting each other through the college admissions process. From essay writing to community support, she believes collaboration is the future, and we could not agree more. Her advice is to use your platforms to speak up for what you believe in, and you'll open doors to new networks and valuable opportunities. Without further ado, I'm so excited to introduce Skyler Basco. Hey, Skyler.
Hi, thank you so much for having me. I'm really inspired by everything the Conversationalist does. I think it's a really great platform to help people break open their echo chambers.
Thanks, Skyler. And I know we've been connecting via DM for so long, so it's nice to finally see your face and really an honor to have you here today. So, Skyler, the college admissions process is probably one of the most stressful experiences in a young person's life. I can definitely attest to that. And you have come up with a way to make it better through BEAM. So what advice do you have for ways that Gen Zers can support each other when coming into adulthood?
Yeah, so when you asked that question, it actually reminded me of this phrase that is, your network is actually equal to your net worth. And when I came across this piece of advice about a few months ago, it made me realize that absolutely anyone in Generation Z has the ability to use social media to leverage their career pathway. And I think that one of the most defining characteristics about Generation Z as a whole is that we're actually pretty much the first generation to directly be born into this digital world and truly transform what it means to connect with others. So when it comes to getting this head start on your transition to adulthood, I think you should just simply harness the power of social media to build relationships with people who inspire you or who you have similar interests with, or people who you even envision working with in the future. So whether you're in high school or you're in college, just start building that LinkedIn profile, building connections, and start reaching out to people in these industries that you're interested in working with. And depending on how these conversations go, maybe you can ask for a coffee chat. And I know that we're all into this whole hype of Clubhouse, which is a really amazing platform where you can have these live podcast style discussions with inspiring new people. And honestly, with social media, the ways that we can connect with each other and lean on each other for support during these times of hardship are very endless. And I think as Generations Z, some of our biggest qualities is definitely that we're entrepreneurial, is our first one. I think for a second one, we're very outspoken. And for the third one, we're very purpose driven. So, and I see this in communities like the Conversationalist and in communities like Beam, this community of high school students. And with this ability to unite under these three qualities, I think that we can tackle problem solving, not with a competitive mindset, but rather with a collaborative mindset. And I really hope that Generation Z will continue to harbor these values as we go off into college and our career pathways and beyond.
Yes, Skyler, I love that. Thank you so much. Couldn't agree more that your network is your net worth. I think Tasanka said it best. We've got to put that on a t-shirt at some point. I'm sure we're on one. But really appreciate what you shared about starting to build those relationships, right? Like, I'm such a believer in just putting yourself out there, reaching out to someone who might be in an industry that you're interested in down the road. And that's the perfect place to start. Also, huge advocate for Clubhouse. So anyone who's out in it, it's a great place to connect. But thank you so much for sharing that advice.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm really excited to hear everyone else's perspectives.
Us too. So we'll hear from you in a bit, Skyler, and thank you so much for being here.
See ya.
Awesome. Talk soon. Amazing. If anyone's not in the Beam community yet, you got to join. So next up, we are introducing another honoree who is very familiar to our TC community. Our next honoree is an 18-year-old education activist, author, active member of our community, as well as a former TC intern. She is an identical twin who loves talking about politics, music, education, pop culture, innovation, and poetry. She is passionate about being an igniter and a catalytic force in the education system. As the founder of the Student Leadership Initiative program, she and her peers help other high school students to navigate their interests and passions through the mentorship-fueled social venture. It is a space where students can gather to share ideas, encourage and support one another, and tackle projects that they believe will truly help and improve their communities. We are so proud of this honoree and excited to honor Deborah Olatunji. Hi, Deborah.
Hey, how are you?
Joshi, so great to see you. You know you're one of our faves here at TC, so thank you for being with us tonight. I'm so excited to hear more about your organization, the Student Leadership Initiative program, and I know it revolves around collaboration and coming together, similarly to what Skyler just shared. And I know that this collaboration really helps young people come together to accomplish bigger and better things. So Deborah, what are the benefits that you've seen and experienced from this initiative you've created that brings people together?
Yeah, so the work that I've been doing with SLIP really came and stemmed from a lot of a conversation in high school about how there wasn't a real space for people to talk about the things they cared about, to just lean on a community with other students, and then also to just talk about things that were outside of the regular STEM curriculum. And so now I've kind of moved towards things with my podcast, the Voices of Disruption podcast, but there are still SLIP communities in Delaware, as well as the great state of Tennessee. And what I've seen from the high school seniors who have helped continue to propel this mission of bringing people together is that people want to keep changing and reimagining the high school education system. And we've had this real opportunity in the pandemic to think about that and to have a larger conversation on what unification means beyond the pandemic. And so I think the biggest thing that I've taken away from the work that I did with SLIP and really building that in my high school and helping me to grow in other schools and then starting the podcast and trying to engage the community that I've built on my Instagram is that there's always going to be this need for unification. And it just takes one person stepping up and calling it out and then bringing other people together. And almost like the quote that was said earlier, how we're just continuing to create more and more leaders. That's exactly what we're doing. We're creating more and more unifiers. And that's the whole goal of unification.
Amen to that. And thank you so much for leading that charge. I think so often we see a problem in the world and we always say to ourselves, oh, someone else is going to solve that. Like it's not me, someone else is going to do it. I'm such a believer in being that person and stepping up and disrupting. Glad you brought up your podcast. I'm a huge fan. And I so appreciate you taking the lead for our generation and the next generation to bring people together in such a profound way. So Deborah, you're a rock star.
Thank you. It's always a pleasure to talk to you, Sophie.
You're the best. So we'll hear from you more in a little bit, but Deborah, congrats again, and thank you for being here.
Thank you.
Awesome. Bye. Love Deborah. You've got to check out her work, subscribe to her podcast. Huge, huge, huge fan. All right. So next up, we have an honoree who is also a unifier, and the proof is in the name of his organization, Break the Divide. Break the Divide aims to turn empathy into action. His inspiration comes from his faith, and specifically the concept of seva, which means selfless service. He works to connect youth from around the world to foster empathy and support youth-led initiatives. We are so excited to honor Abe Singh Satchel. Hey, Abe.
Yeah, thank you for having me, Sophie. It's so great to talk to you and really just talk about empathy, about coming together in unity during this time.
Yes, which I know is something that is so near and dear to your heart and your platform. So thank you for being here. I'm excited to learn a little bit more as you are literally unifying the world with your platform. So what inspired you to connect with like-minded individuals across the globe, and what do you hope to accomplish with Break the Divide?
Absolutely. And, you know, your and Richa's discussion in the beginning about how we need to foster empathy and talk to people that we don't agree with and really unite along those bases. That's really the inspiration for Break the Divide for me. And a little story here, I started Break the Divide with my older brother after I traveled to the Canadian Arctic in 2016. So I was only 14 years old at the time, and I really saw the impacts of climate change firsthand. My friends in these communities talked about how from melting permafrost to pipes beneath the surface actually breaking, climate change is real and it's impacting them today. And for me, that moment really allowed me to understand that climate change is not a distant threat. It's impacting real people today. And it's not just polar bears and icebergs and glaciers, it's real people around the world. And that's where the inspiration for Break the Divide really came from. It was this idea that if we can connect young people with one another to share their personal experiences, much like the Conversationalist, to have these conversations and these very important conversations about local problems, then they can work together and collaborate to turn that initial apathy or denial or polarization about an issue into empathy. And at Break the Divide, what we really try to do is help turn that empathy into action.
It's amazing. I mean, that's what it's all about, right? Like, it's got to start with empathy. You've got to put yourself in someone else's shoes, their experiences, understand that someone has a set of lived experiences different from your own, and then channeling that into dialogue and action. So Abe, thank you for being here. Thank you for sharing your work with us. And we've got to collaborate. So
I'm looking forward to it. Thank you for this conversation, but I'm looking forward to everything that comes from here.
Can't wait. So we'll talk more in a bit, but thank you so much, Abe. Talk soon.
Yeah, thanks.
Amazing. Jasanka, if you're watching, we need to reach out to Break the Divide to collab, as with all of these other amazing organizations. So thank you, Abe. All right. Next up, our honoree for this evening is the other half of Gen Zine. She is the co-founder and editor-in-chief of Gen Zine. She is a student, a writer, an activist, and a budding entrepreneur. Her journey started from a personal experience of not feeling represented in pop culture as a young Indian woman, but she expanded her mission to designing media for social change at large. She wants to encourage young minds to think critically and expand the breadth of table topics for conversation. She strives to make activism accessible and digestible for regular young people, and we are so proud to honor her for that. So welcome, Anushka Joshi. Hi, Anushka.
Hi, thank you so much for having me, Sophie. And also, Richa, if you're still here, you are an inspiration for representation in the media, and that is a show I wish I had a couple years ago, but I'm happy it exists today, and I'm honored to be here with all of the other bright minds.
Thank you so much, and I'm sure Richa is going to really appreciate that. Love everything that she's created, and representation is so important. So thank you for sharing that. Excited to learn a little bit more. Anushka, I know this is our first time talking, but your story is incredibly inspiring. And you bring young people together through Gen Zine to help them discover their passion so they can go out into the world and fight for change. What are your personal goals with Gen Zine and also with the world around us?
I think I started Gen Zine out of a desire to design media for social change. And to me, social change and social impact is about expanding or just allowing everyone to be entitled to the human experience. And to me, the human experience is about self-questioning and being able to freely express yourself. I feel like everyone who's on this journey is always up and down. Who am I? Where am I? What am I doing? But extending that as not a privilege, but as a right to everyone. And so I think, to me, like my work with Gen Zine and also in trying to unify and connect others is on, it occurs on two levels. It occurs on a political level for social change and advocacy, but it also occurs on a personal level. Like, what are you doing offline? Are you gonna walk the walk, or are you just talking the talk? I think humanity is exceptionally divided at this point in time, not just in terms of political parties, but also in.
Oh, wait, Anushka, I think we lost your sound.
Oh, can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you now.
Oh, okay. Well, I'm just gonna take these out then.
Amazing.
But my goals with Gen Zine are to.
Oh, wait, Anushka, now I can't hear you again. I'm so sorry to cut you off. I just want to make sure that you are heard. So, yes, you're here. I can hear you.
Thank you. I'm sorry that had to happen.
No worries. I'm so excited to hear what you had to say.
Yeah, no, I just want to extend the opportunity to allow people to come in and write, and whether that's about the latest change in policy, or if that is about a personal story that means a lot to their day-to-day life. I think we have to address both sides of the story.
Yes, both of those levels are so important, and I see it through your work with Gen Zine. So thank you for creating a place to have those conversations that can turn into action, and also a call for all of us to make sure that we are walking the walk. So really appreciate you and your work. So thank you for being here.
Thank you. You as well.
Awesome. Talk more soon. Bye. Gen Zine is amazing. You've got to go follow. Her and Sam are a force to be reckoned with. Amazing. So next up for the evening, we have the co-founder of the What We Think podcast. This honoree grew up very shy, but has definitely found her voice and has amplified the voices of others. Along with her co-host, she works to amplify Gen Z voices about important issues through the podcast. They bring guests with a diversity of opinions onto the show to speak about their perspectives in hopes of creating a strong, diverse Gen Z community. We are so excited to honor Mandira Ganti. Hi, Mandira. I think you're on mute. I'm so sorry. That's like the most annoying thing to say in 2020.
Well, I just wanted to say I'm so excited to be here. Thank you for having me.
Of course, it's so wonderful to meet you. It looks like we're wearing matching sweaters.
Oh, yeah.
I love it. And I would love to learn a little bit more about your work with What We Think. So as I just mentioned in your bio, Mandira, you really give a voice to anyone and everyone from different backgrounds, beliefs, and values, which is what we really value here at TC. So who and or what ultimately has inspired you to go out and unify our generation?
I think the thing that ultimately inspired me to start working to unify Gen Z was seeing all the tension, all the hate, especially on social media. I think I'm somewhat lucky to live in a place where everyone feels exactly like I do on all political issues. But I think starting with this year, with how all these controversial events like COVID, Black Lives Matter, and the presidential election coming up last year, we really got to a tipping point. And I started to see a different side to my community, because though I did agree with them on important political issues, I didn't agree with the way that people with different opinions were being viewed or attacked online. Because I don't feel like cancel culture or just shutting people out is the best way that we can improve as a country. But I knew that we were coming from a place of privilege. I mean, I was coming from a place of privilege, because the big decisions that were being made, they weren't affecting my life. My rights weren't at stake. And that's why I felt like it was my duty to take this privilege that I was given and use it and try to take this podcast and have genuine conversations with people who have different opinions. Because I wouldn't make someone who's afraid for their futures or their family's futures to be put in a situation to have to put all their fears aside to speak with someone who they might feel like is compromising their life in this country. But since I didn't have this perspective, I thought I really had a good opportunity to be a part of the unification movement.
And I'm so happy you are a part of that movement. I think it's so amazing what you shared about how you took a problem that you saw in the world, and instead of just sitting around and talking about it with yourself and people within your echo chamber, you decided to break open that echo chamber and start larger conversations with people across backgrounds. And I really believe that that's an amazing starting place for change. So thank you so much for your work.
Thank you.
Awesome. And super excited to keep the conversation going, but I want to spotlight your amazing co-founder next. So we will talk to you in a bit. Awesome. Talk to you soon. Piggybacking off of that incredible podcast that everyone here needs to subscribe to, I am so excited to recognize our final honoree this evening. Our last honoree is the other half of the What We Think podcast. Her role model is Ilhan Omar because she is unapologetically Muslim and always stays true to her values and beliefs. She is a 17-year-old student from Washington working to promote civil conversations between teens with different opinions. What We Think covers current events and controversial topics in a way that's both digestible and entertaining to the average teen. This is why we love the work at the What We Think podcast, and we're so excited to welcome Sarah Khan.
Yes. Hi. I'm so excited to be here.
Welcome.
Thank you for having me on.
So good to see you. And excited to learn a little bit more about your work with What We Think. I'm such a fan. So thank you for being here with us tonight. And I would love to know, with the What We Think podcast, not only do you bring on guests from all different backgrounds and walks of life, but you are igniting controversial conversations. How do you think these discussions that you're having on the podcast will ultimately lead towards unification?
Well, starting off, I feel like having people have this idea that everyone needs to agree on everything all the time. Otherwise, how is change going to happen? If you don't think my way, then what are you doing? And that just really didn't sit well with me, and it's just been boiling up. And so these controversial discussions that we have on our podcast, the more that we had them, I really realized that even with our different perspectives, we really are all, at the end of the day, we're all human, and we still had so much in common. And I remember one of our episodes, it was right before the November election, and we had sat down with people, with teens our age, some of them were voting age and some of them were not, to talk about who they supported and why they supported them. And we had some who supported Biden and some who supported Trump. And it was still really interesting because we were able to have a civil discussion, and we talked about a wide variety of topics that we didn't agree on a lot of them, but the more that we started talking about them and realized that our arguments, even though we debated on the surface level, a lot of our core values still were surprisingly the same. And so the most important thing that I got out of all of this is that we have to try to understand the opposite side. Because if we're at each other's throats, which happens a lot with the cancel culture, as you guys had talked about earlier, everyone gets shut down and people feel more defensive rather than being able to open up and explain themselves. And if we're able to understand what the other side is, then we can all figure out a way to walk towards the same goal and ultimately make progress in the future, that's what it is, I feel like.
I just want to give you a little mic drop moment.
Sorry, you're going to give me a little.
We can also fist pump. Either way, that was a mic drop moment and a fist pump moment. Sarah, thank you so much for all that you're doing to lead that movement of understanding the other side. That is what I try to live and breathe every single day, and knowing that sometimes to realize that there can be common ground, it takes time to hear the other side. And oftentimes that common ground is what you want. We all want the same thing for the most part, right? Obviously there are exceptions, but we all want to create a better future that is equitable and equal for all. And you're right. I think with cancel culture, we've gotten to a point where we're so defensive that we're not willing to truly listen. So thank you for all that you're doing to create that open forum and that space to explore other ideologies and other trains of thought, because that's what's going to move us forward.
Of course, thank you. I'm excited to move forward with the Conversationalist too and kind of spread this message. So
yes, I can't wait to keep working together. And without further ado, I would love to bring back all of your fellow honorees so we can have a little discussion and keep this going. I think we're on to something here, and I want to dive a little deeper. So let's bring everyone back up. Hey, Skyler, Abe, Mandira, Anushka, Deborah, hello. So great to see all of you. How's everyone doing? Good.
Yeah, awesome.
Amazing. Any original thoughts? I want to know how everyone's doing right now.
Amazing.
Love it.
To be here.
Love to hear it. So happy
How
you
are
all.
you, Sophie?
I'm good. I'm just taking it all in. I feel like I'm sometimes in conversations, especially live on YouTube, I feel like I'm always like trying to prepare my next thought or like make sure I'm not saying the wrong thing. But tonight I just feel so present with all of you. And I think it's because I identify with your stories in so many ways. I feel like we're all unifiers trying to really bring people together on this earth, and just super grateful to be here with all of you. So thank you for letting us honor you. It's really, really moving to me, our team, and resonates so deeply. So thank you. And thanks for asking. I feel like oftentimes people are like, how are you? And it's not a two-way street. So Anushka, appreciate you. That was so nice. But I want to dive a little deeper since we're all here. We have so many awesome thoughts. I felt like this could be a nice little mini incubator to figure out where we go from here as a generation. So we heard about your amazing work tonight across different sectors and spectrums, and we've started reflecting on unity and unification. I want us to think big for a moment, and I want to open up the floor and ask what you think a unified world truly looks like. If our work was done and our platforms did not need to exist because the world was unified, what would that world look like? And anyone, feel free to unmute or type into the queue, and I can, throw the mic around, but anyone feel free to hop in.
Yeah.
Abe, do you want to kick us off?
Yeah, so I want to preface this by saying I'm a Canadian. I've lived in Canada my entire life, and I've looked at the States as an outsider. And, I think we see a lot of polarization and division in the United States. But what we're really seeing, though, is growing levels of populism, nationalism around the world. And I think when it comes to unity, it doesn't need to be the fact that we agree with each other. And we've all touched on that. But I think greater than that, it's the idea that we can come together at the table. I see Canadians in the chat. That's awesome. I love seeing my fellow Canucks. But I really think that when we come together and are able to have open discussions, when we consider the same set of facts and actually analyze arguments, that makes a lot more sense, and it allows us to make the transformative change that we need. We need that global level of collaboration, and I really think that stems from a place of empathy. Understanding where other people, other countries are coming from, and working together on that basis to solve the greatest challenges that we do face. I'm sure everyone else here has a lot to add on that. But I really do think that when it comes to something like climate change or the pandemic or the mental health crises that we face in the world, it's through working together, slowing down, and having those dialogues that are often missing these days that will allow us to create that change.
Yeah, and that empathy is missing too. So I'm happy you touched on that, because I think if we can flex our empathy muscle a little bit more, like, we can go so far. So thank you, Abe. Deborah, what are your thoughts?
Yeah, I love that you bring in the idea of empathy, because it's such a big part of bringing people together. It's noticing that there's individual actions that we can take in order to unify the world, and also collective actions we can take, like empathy in terms of the pandemic, wearing a mask, getting vaccinated, maintaining distance, being cognizant of the fact that there are issues going on in our world outside of ourselves. I think a lot of times we talk about unification as a larger conversation, but it's also like a push to action, because we can keep talking about these issues that really matter, but we won't get to that unified world until everyone notices that it's like we all have to come together to take action on the things that we care about, and then encourage the other people around us to continue that action, so that it isn't performative or that it isn't a one-time thing, but it's a continuous and ongoing lifelong commitment to doing the work and doing the action, so we don't have injustices that still exist in our world.
Completely. I I don't know if anyone saw, but we started something new at the Conversationalist called Let's Talk Events, where anyone can host an event on topics that matter to them. And Deborah, I would love to host a conversation with you literally about what you just said. I think there's so much to unpack there about this issue that at least I've seen where people really only care about issues that affect them. And how can we get people to care about those issues outside of ourselves, right? I think empathy is a huge component, but there's so much to unpack. So Deborah, thank you for bringing that up. I'm gonna reach out to you, so hopefully we can unpack that in another conversation. So thank you so much. Anushka, what are your thoughts?
I keep returning to the idea that we have to start small. I'm currently conducting a lot of interviews for our next zine with the people who we've crossed paths with, who do a lot of really cool stuff, but we're trying to get to the why. Why do people do what they do? And it comes down to a very, very simple existence and a very simple line that we want to impact those around us. And it also makes you wonder, what is a good life for you? And I touched on this earlier, but allowing everyone so it's not a luxury, but a privilege. But I also do believe it's about questioning you and your actions and understanding who you are as a person, and not maybe your passions and your dreams, but who you are when you interact with others. And for me, it comes down to 5 things. Yes, empathy is a huge one, but it is a prioritization of community, compassion, creativity, critical thinking, and curiosity. And I feel like those 5 values that I try to live by, that I try to encourage other people to live by, to create this sort of unification. But again, it really has to start with the people around you. I frequently wave and smile at people when I'm on my walks, and it doesn't really fly all the time because I don't think people are used to simple acts of kindness anymore. And yes, I do preach social justice and social change, but if it can't happen with the people in our community, connecting and bonding, then when will it happen?
Snaps to that. Also, Anushka, can you recap those 5 C's?
Yeah.
Community,
compassion, curiosity, critical thinking, and creativity. Those are the 5 pillars of Gen Z.
Love. I feel like I need to put that on a piece of paper and print it out and tape it to my wall. So
I look at it every day.
I might follow up with you just in case I can't remember all 5.
Of course.
Really resonate with what you shared, Anushka. Thank you. Skyler, what are your thoughts?
Yeah, so I think that building a unified world really starts with acknowledging that not everyone will agree with you on a certain issue, that it's simply inevitable that with social media, for example, there's so many points of views to go around. So when having conversations, I think hearing these opposing points of views on a specific topic is very refreshing for your mind and your base of knowledge, because you learn to become well-rounded in a sense and think through each side of a story before coming to an end conclusion. So I think really your mentality is contagious when, navigating conversations and handling different topics in a unified world. So if you just try to approach every conversation with an open mind and acknowledge everyone's points of view at the topic on hand, I feel like we can truly develop a world where not everyone may have the same passions or interests, but everyone will be understanding of each other's perspectives.
Gotta give a big retweet to that. That was so amazing. What you said, Skyler, is so true. We don't have to agree, and it's okay that we disagree, but even just acknowledging, or maybe this might be crazy, but respecting one another's points of view and recognizing that we are all human beings, just that acknowledgement can go so far. So really appreciate you sharing that. Mandira, Sarah, do you want to add anything before we keep going?
I just feel like in my mind, being unified, you guys all said it so well. And the main thing that I think of when it comes to unity is just walking towards the same goal. So even if you have different perspectives and opinions, you're working towards a common goal. And as long as you can put aside your differences, at least somewhat, to get that thing done, then in that mind, that's a success for me.
it. Love it. Love it. Mandira, do you want to add anything?
Yes, I think what Skyler was saying totally spoke out to me. I remember like the first time I actually realized that people live different lives than I do. And I know that sounds like so like egocentric or whatever, but a lot of times we get stuck in the idea that everyone lives like we do, like they all have the same priorities, they all have the same needs. But like the second I actually sat down with people who came from different parts of the country and who knew what it was like living in different areas and the different needs that those people had, I can now like go into different communities, and when I see someone who disagrees with me, I can, instead of just like attacking them in my mind, I can think, well, maybe this is why they think that way, you know? And it's just so refreshing, and it just like puts the world in a whole new light for me.
Love that so much. If anyone ever asks me my favorite quote, my answer is always, the moment when you realize that the rest of the world doesn't think like you, that's when you grow. And it's awesome, Mandira, that you had that moment. I think everyone experiences it at a different moment in their lives, but that for me was the turning point. So really, really appreciate you sharing that. And I see Taylor had a very similar experience. I know. I can't think we're trying to pull it up on stage at the same time, but really love what you shared, Mandira. Thank you so much. And would love to pose one more question to all of you for being here tonight. It might be a big question, but hey, that's what this is all about. I would love to know your thoughts first on, actionable next steps that we can take as a generation to come together. Like, where can we go from here? How can we leave this virtual YouTube panel and start walking the walk? That's one question. And part two is, clearly tonight, each of you have shown what happens when you use your voice for good. So much good can happen. What advice do you have for other young changemakers out there who might not know where to start, so that we can all empower one another to start amplifying each other's voices? Anushka, do you want to start us off?
I would. I was thinking about this in terms of my own personal life. Basically, my political awakening, super social change, get to the systemic issues, came to me when I was graduating high school. And yeah, that was 4 years ago, around the time Trump became president. And I've been sitting with myself a lot, kind of questioning, like, was my identity anti-Trump? Was I doing good out of hate for another group? And just trying to understand within myself, like, where my motivations were coming from also, or at least how I was using my energy. Lost my train of thought. But basically, like, trying to ground myself in the idea that it has to come from a place of love. And that probably makes a lot of sense for a lot of people, but it is something that I am now just like coming on to the other side with. And another thing is, for a lot of people, Biden being president is a win. And for a lot of like non-activists, aka like maybe the general population. But as my job with connecting with normal Gen Zers, I have this duty to not let everyone go to sleep again for the next 4 years and for beyond that. And it is, for me, keeping the energy that we have witnessed for the past 4 years of Gen Z and keeping that going. Because that was really powerful, what I was able to, and what all of us were able to experience in the past 4 years. I mean, that was just my, like, experience with this, like, social justice and the internet friends, but just not letting it stop, basically.
Love it.
Constantly challenging people.
Love it. Thank you so much, Anushka. Really resonate with what you shared. Deborah, do you want to share next?
Sorry, my mic's not working. I don't know if you can hear me.
Yeah, we can.
Okay. Yeah, so I think one of the biggest things, I'll do the advice for young people first. Well, our generation. I hate calling us young people, I'm sorry. But I think one of the biggest things is doing the inner work. Like, it's hard to have a conversation with someone if you're not even sure of what you should be talking about to begin with. And a lot of that time, it's like
looking at what you care about, looking at your interest, thinking about what really matters to you. And then when you go outside of that scope of what really matters to you after doing the inner work, then you can really come in as a community member, ready to share those perspectives and listen at the same time. And then the actionable steps along with doing the inner work, have a conversation with someone who is outside of your generation. I think that as Gen Zers, we're often, we're on the internet, we're on our phones, we're doing the thing, we're killing the game all the time, but there's also so much knowledge that we can get from the other generations. For example, my mentor, you know him, Rich Keller, he has such an incredible mind. And a lot of the things that I have changed my mind about or have been just introduced to have come from my connection with him. And so don't write off the other generation, just as we're encouraging them not to write off us. Don't see us as lazy, because when we all come together in that way, yes, we love Rich, we can be even more powerful. So doing the inner work, talking to other generations, and then staying true to yourself.
Yes, yes, yes. I hope Rich's ears are ringing right now. If anyone doesn't know Rich Keller, reach out to me and Deborah after this. He's the GOAT. But intergenerational dialogue is so important. Deborah, thank you for that reminder. Abe, throwing the mic to you.
Yeah, I would really say one of the most actionable things is to recognize that there's also a lot of nuance to this. That, if someone denies your basic humanity, or if there's no way to come together in the first place, you might need to take a different approach. And maybe that's, as Anushka talked about, being very curious, really inquiring and learning why someone feels the way that they do. And so an actionable step for that really is go out into your community, find someone who maybe doesn't agree with you or who you haven't talked to. Really, building off of what Deborah said, there's so much knowledge in older generations, but people younger than us as well. And I think going out and actively seeking those perspectives allows you to grow as a leader. And that really builds on to the next thing, which is advice for young people. How do we become better leaders and better humans? And I would really say it's to learn. It's to listen and to learn. And I know, for example, on social media these days, I'm looking at a lot of protests going on in India. And I see that, and I see that I actually don't know much about the issue, although I'm very connected to it. And learning from people that are at the front lines, learning from them with the purpose of understanding and not, inserting my own perspectives onto that. Really listening, learning, and using those experiences to grow as a person, and then impacting your community. That's really what it's all about. And I think we're all under this process of becoming better people through that process of listening, learning, understanding, and as we say at Break the Divide, turning empathy to action.
So beautifully said. I don't have anything to add. It was just a mic drop moment. Thank you so much. Sarah, what are your thoughts?
So everything that you guys said, Deborah, what you said about the intergenerational conversation is that really spoke to me. I think that's so important, and often it goes overlooked. And going back to earlier, we were saying about we have to start out small, and that really means starting with conversations in our own communities, in our own circles of friends. I know that when you're with your friends, you generally want to have a good time, and it's difficult to talk about, heavier things, and especially if you know that they might not be very open to talking about things if they have different perspectives. But that's exactly how change has to happen. You have to push yourself to have conversations with your friends or people around you that don't, as Abe said, don't agree with you, and not just conversations, but taking action. For example, in my neighborhood, during when the pandemic first started around, I can't believe it's almost been a year. That's crazy. But back then it was a huge rush. The grocery stores were empty. There was no hand sanitizer, masks were wiped out, all of that. And there was this really nice family, and they had got masks, disposable masks for everybody in our neighborhood. And I thought that was it was such a sweet gesture, and just small things like that, even if we have our different backgrounds, our different political opinions, different perspectives on so many things, coming together to ultimately work towards a bigger goal, combating the pandemic, that's really what it was about. And that really was a great example for myself to see that change really, it starts small, and you just have to take a small action to show people that you're willing to put in the work and people will follow you too.
What a powerful story. Thank you for sharing. Mandira, throwing the mic to you.
Yeah, sorry, I just wanted to say that was such a beautiful story. Oh my God. But the thing that I wanted to speak about was with having conversations with people who have different opinions. The things that I really learned is that the most important thing is to be okay with being vulnerable. Because I feel like with vulnerability is one of the biggest ways we can actually find something in common with someone with different opinions. And I don't think it's productive to have a conversation with someone else who isn't willing to put themselves on that like level of vulnerability, because it's important that at the end of the day we're all looking at each other with respect, and we're not looking at each other based on our political opinions, but instead as a type of people that we are and what's at our core. And I think that's one of the things that even with all these big issues in the world, that's one of the big things that we can unify and come together with.
Amazing. I love it. Thank you so much for sharing that, Mandira. Skyler, final thoughts. Take us home.
Yeah, so I think one of the main things that have hindered Gen Z from expressing themselves and truly having conversations that matters the way that we were trained to be in the school system. I think school trains us to be followers in a sense and not leaders. Like, we're trained to follow the leader and not become the leader. So what about the next trendsetters, like the next conversation starters and entrepreneurs? You know, I think that we can definitely break this cycle by realizing that maybe not everyone has to be an entrepreneur, but I personally think that everyone can become an entrepreneurial thinker and thrive when creativity and disruption are encouraged in these conversations. So don't be scared to go beyond that cog in a machine 9-to-5 career pathway. Just do what you love and don't be scared to make entrepreneurial decisions and reach out to people who inspire you. You know, you'll fail, but you know, by doing this, by just shooting your shot, you'll develop the courage to bounce back from anything and just get stronger. And this will definitely bring a step closer to just driving towards your dreams. So use those platforms and social media to speak up for what you believe in, and you'll definitely open so many doors to getting to where you need to be faster. So just stop waiting for opportunities and start creating opportunities for yourself.
Skyler, I hope everyone's snapping. We love snaps at TC. That was so awesome. What an important note for us to end on. For those of you who have not been in our Geneva community, we love our emoji reactions. And our new favorite one, coined, I think, by Sammy Wolf, is a microphone. And it's what you react to someone if you just want to like amplify what they're saying. And I feel like I'm just like trying to react with the microphone emoji. But anyways, I digress. Skyler, Sarah, Mandira, Anushka, Abe, Deborah, Richa, and the other honorees this evening, thank you so much for sharing your work with us, your voices with us, your passions with us. It's truly an honor being able to work with all of you. I hope this is just the beginning or the first conversation of many, and really just can't wait to keep watching you grow out in the world and bringing this message of unification to so many people who need it. So I always like to say, you know, from one unifier to another, thank you for helping us build this world that we all hope to create. So thank you all so much. This was awesome. We see so many people still with us in the chat tonight. So many fun faces. If anyone wants to keep the conversation going, you know, I got to give a little Geneva plug. Come join us in the community. Really, we can't wait to have you and welcome you so we can really come together as a generation and talk more about these important topics, whether it's unification or another topic that resonates with you. So thank you all. Thank you to our honorees, our panelists, and for everyone here in the live chat for being here with us tonight. This was such an honor for me. I can't believe this was our last list panel. So we've got to do more of these events. So thank you all so much and hope you have a wonderful, wonderful weekend.
Thank you so much. Yeah, you guys, everyone, it was awesome talking to you all, and I hope you guys, we go places. I think it'll be really fun to see where the future takes us. So
It's so
thank
lovely
you.
meeting
Thank
you
you.
all.
You.
Thanks for
Y'all
having
are
me here.
amazing. Thank you so much. And we will see you next time at TC as we continue to unify the world one voice at a time. Bye, everyone.